Per Sport's Six Nations show, brought to you in association with Opel, a proud sponsor of Irish Rugby.
Emily, you spoke about Dima being an Olympian. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what that means to you and what it takes to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I have dreamed of this since being a young kid. I started out my sporting background in athletics, so obviously you'll be watching Usain Bolt and be like, oh, someday if I could sprint like him. That kind of thing would just be in my mind. And then I ended up kind of falling out of love with athletics because it was quite an individual sport at that time. And in school I was playing basketball, so I was like, oh, I really like this team element to it. I like these teammates, they're cheering you on. They always had your back. You're never out there alone. I was like, oh, I actually like team sports. I was like, okay, and you know what, I'll give rugby a go. Gave rugby a go, started off in 15s, ended up getting picked similar to Stacey for the underage 7s. And then at that point I realised, actually we just heard that Rio, which was the first rugby 7s, Rio was the first Olympics that the rugby 7s is going to be in. So I was like, oh, this is great. I can actually achieve this childhood goal that I've actually always dreamt about. So although I may have lost that dream for a few years going to 15s and stuff, I eventually got it back. And, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication and commitment, but I think it just takes belief as well and confidence that if you can actually dream of this big dream and if you work really, really hard at it, that your path hopefully will lead you to what you want to excel in. And luckily for us, we're quite close to Olympic qualification this year. We have a few routes that we can get through it, but for me and Stacey, we've tried to qualify twice to core, which is very difficult when you just want to achieve your dream and you want to, I suppose the purpose for our program as well in 7s is the Olympic goal, because that's what our program is about. Ultimately, seeing our men's team do it in Tokyo, which was absolutely outstanding. We were all just delighted for them, crying happy tears because we know how hard it is to actually get there. But yeah, I think we're really hardworking and dedicated team that just drive this dream and this purpose that we believe that we are going to be Olympians at some point.
Yeah, brilliant. It's just from a female perspective, we do things because we're passionate about it. And I watch you girls at every single 7 summit. You guys just play with a smile and you interact really well with each other. How important is that to be a team that gets on so well, both on the pitch and off the pitch?
Yes, it's a really important part of being any team, not just being a high performance team. I'm sure you guys there work, it's so important to be close with each other so that you can work so well together to achieve whatever outcome that you need to get out of it. And I think with us in 7s, the dream of actually becoming Olympians is actually what's driving us all and giving us all this purpose that, you know what, if we actually stick together here, because none of us are going to be able to do it on our own. And when you're part of a team, you'll never do it on your own. You'll never be able to achieve what you want to achieve on your own. You need the people around you and you need the support of your staff and your players. And I think we just have that really, really gelled with them. And
we can see it when you're playing. Anne Marie, you would have seen a lot of changes over the years with women's rugby. How important from the domestic side and pathway side and the leadership of women in the women's game do you feel it is to develop and continue to develop for these girls to progress on?
Yeah, it's huge and it's really at the forefront at the moment. And I think some of what you've just been talking about leads lovely into it because we started the leadership program there in the 18-19 season and we're trying to build that particularly on the female side. But part of that is that collaboration, that working as a team becomes you're only as strong as your weakest link as everybody is learning. And we really need to build on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. And so bringing women into the decision-making role and bringing those values of teamwork and commitment. And that's what the Spirit of Rugby program is about, is making sure that that's at all levels of the game, right from the club upwards, so that those pathways exist. It's interesting hearing the girls in terms of what age they got into. The Minis Festival was on a Viva at the weekend, and we can now see that girls are coming through there and they started playing when they're 6 and 7 in club rugby, and the introduction of X7s in the schools, that they're getting that experience earlier, but getting that really good environment. Touching the ball is one thing, but the environment has to be there where they can flourish and thrive and come through all the different ranks. So that's kind of part of my role, and it's sort of supporting in the background and encouraging women into those roles that they can support the girls on their journey forward.
Yeah, you talk about the environment and how it's important, and obviously the Sevens girls have a great environment, and we hear about them and we see it all the time. So how does that filter from your domestic side right up into the provincial sides and into the national sides? Is there leadership work going on through that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts at the club level. And again, it's quite a new program. We had 18-19 season and the 19-20 season, and 50% of the participants were female. So there were anything from female coaches, female referees, but also female decision makers at club level, and giving them the confidence to take the next step forward. Because I think you mentioned it, like when you were starting off there, can't see it, can't be it. We've heard that a lot lately. And that initiation, one of the things that we've done recently is set up a Women in Rugby network. Because, there are still people coaching that they're the only female coach for miles around them. There are very few female, and even though we've some key joint level and we some key females there in refereeing, but we don't have enough to actually somebody say, yeah, I can do that. And then more than you probably, just listen to Stacey there going, when I realised we went to St. Louis, and I think your PE teacher was probably somebody I went to college with, and you need those people to grab you into the game and those role models. So the network is trying to bring those females together to build their confidence and to give visibility, so that there's, we don't have Stacey in a couple of years' time saying, I couldn't see that route. That pathway has to be obvious into the game.
Brilliant. Stacey, just getting back to the Olympics, we've got qualifications coming up soon, but just tell us, what's the journey been like so far to try and qualify for the Olympics? So to qualify, it's quite hard in the Sevens, it's difficult, there's pressure on all the time. Just tell us about the journey so far for that.
The failures or this? Just a good story this year.
Yeah, you can tell us about the heartbreak. I think it's important to know the heartbreak and how that pushes you on.
So in 2016, and what was the Tokyo?
And 2019, the Tokyo qualification. Our team, the first one, I didn't really believe that we could do it because we were such a fresh new program. And I did believe we did have the talent, but we just didn't have everything that gelled around that. So that was quite hard, not qualifying. It's still hard, what's still a loss kind of. And then Tokyo kind of believed in a little bit more. We'd come on a bit more as a program. And there was still something missing. I don't know what it was. I still couldn't tell you to this day. But we didn't qualify. We had a really, really hard tournament in Russia, in Kazan, and we didn't make our semi-finals, which would have led to us then having a second opportunity to actually qualify. So we didn't even make the repechage, it's called. So that was even harder because you don't even get another chance. You don't give yourself that second chance to get another chance. And then this year, I think post-COVID, we have like an influx of really, really young players who've been playing since they're smaller. So with that mixed with the girls, me and Leigh and another girl, Lucy, who've been there for a while, kind of it just feels right. I don't even know how to say it. It just feels like a really good mix of people, and a group of people who do question each other and call each other out, but it's for the best interest of the team. And I think team first has been all this year, and that's what it has been. So we've been building them. Last year we didn't really have much expectation of ourselves, but we went and we made our first final in Seville, and we just performed really well throughout the season. And then this year we knew coming into the season that we had to either, the first group qualification is coming top 4 in the World Series. So for those who don't know, the World Series is the top 12 teams in the world compete against each other in like a league structure and throughout 7 different locations. And so we play like a monthly tournament, let's just say. And if you consistently perform throughout the year, you get your points, and then you end up being first, second, third, fourth. And if we come top 4 this year in the World Series, we'll automatically qualify for the Olympics, which is the first route. At the minute, we're standing 5th, but because France are hosts of the Olympics next year, that they are automatically qualified. So as it stands, we're in the qualification position. We have one more tournament to go. which is in Toulouse. Obviously you never want to put pressure on just one tournament and one thing, because there's GB and Fiji are really close to their heels at the minute. So we're kind of seeing it as this is our first opportunity. If you'd said to me or any of the team at the start of the year that we'd be in this position to qualify first group, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have said I'd come into the year just happy to be top 8, top 5, top 4, like brilliant. So the fact that we are where we are now and we have that first chance to qualify is something, it is scary, and I do fear, but I think that it's exciting, and I think that it's a place, it shows the team where we are placed now, and I think that we've never been here before, and it just shows the growth in Irish rugby and women's rugby and sevens rugby in Ireland, because not many people know about sevens rugby, and I tell you, if you can't watch a game, you'll know about sevens rugby. It's a phenomenal sport to watch, and it's a really, really hard sport to play, but it's worth it. So if we qualify through Toulouse, we'll get a little bit more off time, which we don't usually get. But if we don't, we have the Europeans. We have 2 legs of the Europeans at a qualifier tournament in June and July. And then if we don't do through then, we'll hopefully come in the top 4, top 3 to go into the Olympic breakfast next year, which would be a long wait to know if you're going to go to the Olympics or not. But for me, I think for our team, it's not about the if, it's about the when. So fingers crossed.
I don't know if you listened to Jill Potts, one of her podcast, and she just said that, the dive is better than the splash. And that's just something that stayed in my mind about this journey that our program has done on, that this dive is a huge dive, but it will be better than the splash, because you look back on journeys and you're like, the journey was worth it. Like, the splash is going to be the Olympics and that tournament is a pinnacle, but like, it's the dive and the journey that teams go on, and businesses and stuff that you go on, and look where we are now in this amazing facility compared to where back in like 260, like again called it. Not to do it. It actually spin that my couple out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that when you read a book, it's not about the ending all the time. It's about the story and the journey you're brought on. So the ending's just what happens at the end, but like then it's over. But like the journey and the people you meet and the things you get to do, and I think that's more important than actually the end. So I think, yeah, just every little bit in it.
Brilliant. Sevens and tap rugby was my first stop, and I did get the opportunity here and played about 15s games. And can you explain the difference between the sevens and 15s for those that don't know it? Because there is a huge difference. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, it was easy to transfer in and out into expecting than I was like, little. But can you explain the difference between the two sports and how specialised sevens has become in the last 5 years? Because it is a real difficult sport to play. It's high speed, it's one-on-one tackles, things like that. Yeah, so sevens is played on a standard rugby pitch. Sevens gives it away, 7 on the field. 7 minutes a half. So you 14-minute game, you 5 subs. As Tanya has alluded to, it is very fast because you've so much space, and it encourages a faster player to the game. But like Tanya said, like the collisions you've so much more space to be able to defend, or on the flip side, attack against, that it's actually more of it's more demanding on the smaller skill, like the tackle, the breakdown. Like you could have just one strong player come at you at a breakdown and you're the only sealer, whereas in 15s you can have 2, maybe 3. So you need to have that like ability to be able to just stand your own, no matter what size a player is coming at you. The fitness of it, like it is tough. You play 3 games traditionally you play 3 games on one day and 3 games the day after. So it's really, really high demand in around your fitness levels. And then on the other side to it, like mentally, like it's tough. Like we play one game, you've like 2 hours maybe to recover, to eat well, to watch the game you just played, watch your opponent, maybe have a quick 20-minute nap, chat with the team, what are we going to do next, have a meeting, and then get your prep done before you go back out and do it again. compared to 15s, I suppose you have one game at the weekend. Although 15s is very technical, so there's a big difference between it. But sevens at the moment, it is getting a bit more technical, lineouts and stuff, and different ways of playing off scrums, which is good to see. There's obviously a lot more kicking in 15s, so that's another element. But in sevens at the moment, we're getting a lot of like 7 in the line defenders, whereas traditionally you would have had 6 in the line and a sweeper in the back, similar to like a full back role. But now you're getting 7 in the line because defenses want to just shut you down and turn the ball over quickly, because the game is so fast. They just want to score quicker and get the ball back quicker. So now we are seeing a lot more picks being put in sevens, but it is actually growing more attacking game because you can counter attack on that. Yeah, I think. Is there anything else that you could add?
No, obviously, we and Leigh are typically sevens players at the minute anyway. But the two of us transferred over to 15s during COVID period. So we got the chance to actually see the differences and experience them. So I think sevens was my first love for rugby anyway, but I did fall in love with the tactical element of 15s and just like trying to find the space, because in sevens it's a bit easier. You have 7 on the field, you less people to manipulate, but in 15s it's actually there's 3 people in the backfield and there's this amount of people in line. So how are we actually going to manipulate those to find the space and score? Because that's what you want to do in rugby, and that's why people watch rugby, is it the scoring. Like, you don't want to watch picks and drive, like it's just not a good brand. And I think Irish men's have really shown that this year, that the brand of rugby has changed, and I think there is differences between 7s and 15s, but they're both really exciting, good games to watch. And what you'll see in 7s is a really exciting game, a really physical, hard working game on body, and I think 15s is really, really tactical, but you're seeing that flair come into it a lot more in recent years with how New Zealand played, how Ireland played. I think it's getting better, and there is differences, but I think the core skills are quite similar, and if you can twist your head around that and then learn how to use the tactical elements in 15s and 7s, that it'll benefit both games. Yeah.
In recent times, the IRFU invested a lot into the game. And we now see that there's clear pathway with the sevens and the 15s. Can you talk us through the development and what's the kind of how you who've attained?
I think since 2018 we had Women Rugby Action Plan as part of the strategy, so it was a clear pathway since then. And I suppose with some of those difficulties of pulling from a smaller pool of players to go between 2 programs in 7s and 15s, and that's probably one of the most obvious differences that are there now. And I think one of the things that's, part of that is the expansion of the contracts and into the 15s, but also the expansion of the staff behind that, because it's been quite difficult to juggle those 2 sets of pathway performances. Performance pathways, I should say, but now there's a massive increase in the staff on that. So 2018 was the Women Rugby Action Plan, but in 2022 we took a review of that action plan to kind of identify some gaps before we get to the targets that were set out in 2023. So there was a further over 2 million investment. And so that's where some of the additional staff are being appointed at the moment. And things, in the background that you talked about there in terms of the performance nutrition, the recovery, the S&C, all of those things that are off field that are so important. So there's been a massive investment there. There's also been some investment in terms of on the domestic side and working out that AIL, a performance pathway into the high performance side. And there's also been looking at the kind of what is the right model within the club. So the Give It a Try program is a kind of a get into the sport. There's been the ALTI program in schools where maybe young people get their first touch of the ball, but the Give It a Try then is a club-based program, and it has a 40% transfer rate from membership into clubs. So that's been fantastic, and that's where we're seeing some of those girls coming through that have played rugby for longer. And so that program has been expanded all the time. And then off the pitch, we have some of the other kind of ones that I mentioned earlier, like the leadership program. We were about to go with a female-specific leadership program. We had launched it on International Women's Day 2020, and everybody knows what happened then. So we've been kind of, some of the females that have come through the leadership program actually designed some pilot programs for the club game. And we're working on some of those now. So there's investment in that too. And then while I've been working in the Spirit of Rugby programme, I'm now going to lead on an equity, diversity and inclusion policy, which will have a massive focus on women, because we had a 20% target of women in leadership, but we now have 40% target set by the government. So that's going to be a massive piece of work over the coming years. So yeah, there's been a big investment into the game. I think we can now see a clear pathway for participation, but also for performance. And then in the background, all the work that's needed on staff and leadership in terms of that.
Brilliant. Yes, and this Six Nations has been tough for the girls, and obviously you've previously been in the things. What is your assessment of how they're going in the environment? Obviously they train the same venue, but you're not trained together. City does around quite a bit. And you give us as an assessment of how do you think they're going? Yeah, as Tanya alluded to, has been a tough few weeks for the girls, but I think seeing them there on a Monday morning, like they're battered and bruised, like they're giving absolutely everything to that jersey, and a credit to them to be able to pick themselves up every Monday and come back in and just get the job done and get work done to improve. I thought they've improved as the Six Nations have gone on, which is such a good thing to see. I think if you look at the positives of it, we have brought in a lot of new players. You had a mixture with good experience too, but like you see the likes of Durham Nicovard, you see the likes of a young out half Dana, you see the likes of Aoife Dalton, Tash also on the wing. Like, they're new players and it's their first opportunity at a Six Nations, and learning on the big stage is really difficult. But I think it is the best way to learn. It's tough on them, and it's really, really hard, and I can see that for them, that it is tough to learn. But I think in the long run, it will definitely be worth it to be able to learn on such a big stage against such quality opposition. But I think they've improved a lot, especially against England there. We saw their defence was putting England under a lot of pressure. They held them for 30 minutes of the second half to 0, which no team in the Six Nations had done this season. And also, I think our scrum is doing really, really well. Also talking about another young player, Salva Gresh, is only 18, 19, and she's propping like against the likes of people who are World Cup finalists, which is a really, really good thing to see. And also, I think that, as I said, their scrum, like, that has come on so much. We're actually getting huge reward from it. And yeah, so I think this weekend's game against Scotland was a big game for them. And I think every week I do think they focus on getting the little wins and the little improvements, because you can see that in the game when you watch it. So I think this week, again, I presume that they'll stick to those processes and get those little wins that they can to edge out the performance that they need against Scotland. Brilliant. So we can't go without mentioning Opel and how they supported you in your mess. How we have helped them. I've got a product to course with them, but did you have a big piece in shit? See, now fortune is having someone like Opel support you and, the fact you, and, social media and all that's really important, but to have companies backing you as female athletes. Yeah, absolutely. I'm nearly with Opel 2 years now, and when they first approached me, I hadn't even passed my driving test. That's how ridiculous it was. And I was like, I need to get my act together. Failed my first one, passed my second one, and Emma was knocking on the door, ready to wait in the car. And it's just like that, like companies backing you and helping you build your brand. I think Opel was my first ever ambassadorship, and I've been a part of an Irish program for almost 9 years now. And they're the first company to come and touch base with me, and I was like, absolutely, like, just let me get this driving test pass. So it's been really great, like the comfort of driving. I drove a Maca, driving to training, driving home. I'm from Tipperary, so it's good 2 hours on the road. I might add up a lot of mileage, but I get to go home in such comfort, and I know I'm safe in the car. And if there is ever anything like that you need, and it's not just around the car, like Opel are there to help you out. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to them. They've really exposed me as a player, brought us to the Flown this year. That is an experience. The first time I'm a city kid, it's the man just get to do like chats like this, like they're always keen to do things to grow our brand ourselves. So yeah,
That's it.
Yeah, I'd love to say to logo folders about that. Yeah, though I'm with Opel about a year now, and I'm very lucky. I drive the Opel Corsa electric, and I love it. I think even going electric, I was like, oh, the hassle. I'd forget to charge my phone. I'm having to remember to charge my phone. So then they put the charger in the house, and anyway, I love it. I've never done anything other than electric or Opel, to be honest. You have me for life then. I'll be buying my own car when I'm retired, don't worry. Yeah, no, look, it's a great thing that Opel do support women in sport and women in rugby. I see a lot of some of the boxers and stuff are sponsored by garages as well, and I think it grows us as women in sport firstly, and I think it grows our sport as well. But I don't think that it realises that it's a two-way street, because the kind of publicity that we get off it as well, and people are like, oh, they're serious athletes, they're in the speed, they have a car, like, to love. You know, that sounds like a joke, but it's like, look, oh, it's like validating the nearly, and I think that it takes away worries of, oh, you only get paid X amount because you're a female athlete. Well, you're lucky you don't have to pay for this, like, we'll look after you. And I think Opel's been great in that sense, and the cars are phenomenal for anyone who doesn't drive. Like, yeah, I would recommend. Yeah, no, so extremely grateful and thankful. So Emma, shout out to you.
I really think just in collaboration with her sport, like all her sport does for females in general, and it gives Opel just as good a name as us as players. So thanks to her sport as well for collaborating with Opel. Shout out to me in the front row green label ever proudly. At every we do and see Women's Rugby going in the future, we would like it to go.
And remember, like, it's a trouble. I guess where I would like it to go is where I think it is going. And I think it just to pick up on what you were saying there about the improvements in clean and how much has happened in a very short space of time with the Six Nations team, the 15th team, and that positivity that was around there. So, like, I was there on Saturday, and you couldn't but feel the positivity was around it, and the amount of schoolers that were there, and the amount of clubs who would travel big distance. And I want to see that massively grow. I want to see that every girl has the opportunity to say yes. I want to play rugby, and not only do I want to play, and it was one of the things that struck me when Stacey was talking. We did a consultation with a number of youth consultation a number of years ago. And the girls talked about things like, I don't want to be on the back pitch. I want to have as much choice to play on the front pitch, or I don't want our match to be cancelled. And we repeated the process about 5 years later. It was the first time I heard one of the young girls saying, I actually want to be contracted to play for Ireland, that ambition had grown. And I think I want to see that massively, that every girl can have that opportunity. And so the actual playing pathway in the clubs, we want more clubs involved in women's rugby. We want more female coaches, so they have those more visible kind of roles. We want more referees, and ultimately, I suppose the big thing is that we want more female around the decision making. That's where we get the diversity of opinions. That's where we collaborate together to make stronger programs. And that's kind of, we want those competitive structures, but we want those structures on and off the pitch. So we see women taking a really strong role in rugby.